Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our Ask Me Anything session on Google Cloud Data Analytics with generative AI. My name is Lauren, and I'm the content manager for the Google Cloud community. And I'm thrilled to be here with several members of our team, product leaders, who will be taking you through the content today and answering your questions. We also have a few members of the team that will be hopping into the chat, so don't be shy. Let us know where you're joining us from and if you have any questions. So we will be covering questions at the end of the presentation as well as in the chat. So feel free to drop those into the chat at any time. And for questions that we aren't able to get to, please utilize the community. And the link to that is in the YouTube description. We'll also drop it into the chat as an easy reference. But this is where you can search for answers, ask questions, and engage with your peers and Googlers in two-way discussion forums. You can also stay up to date on future events like this one. All right, so we have a lot of content to cover today. So with that, I will hand it over to Firat to take us through the first section of our presentation today. Again, let's stay in touch in the chat as we go along, and I'll hand it over to you, Firat, to take us through.
Thank you, Lauren. Hi, everyone. Today, we'll take you through a little bit of introduction on the, our data and AI landscape, which also covers the BI side of things as well. So we'll start with first on, the BigQuery updates, then we'll follow up with the Looker updates before we are going into the Q&A. And please bear with us. We want to take you through, all the recent interesting stuff that came out from our product teams here at Google Cloud, so that we can answer some of the questions effectively. But with that, let's look into what we are seeing, right? And who has been really building data and AI platforms. In speaking to lots of customers and users, we have really found three challenges that we find organizations face. Many really find it challenging to scale at the organizational level because most of the users don't have access to the data and AI experiences that matches their expertise level. Many are really asked to learn different frameworks, tools, and such. It is also difficult to manage the risks for the increasing complexity of bringing different type of users, bringing different type of data, and even different type of terminology and tools as well. We are producing more and more and expanding the ecosystem, and this is also hampering the innovation. It is difficult to keep up with the the pace of the innovation. Every week there's something new, and the field is rapidly advancing and requires large teams of AI practitioners or data practitioners to stay really at the forefront of the latest research. Why is that really what you really need to do? How about in the world that we can have all the users be part of the data and AI ecosystem, and then we manage these risks through consistent governance and have all the users being part of the data and AI breakthroughs as well, right? And how can we harness also the generative AI opportunity? It's top of the mind for everyone. All the customers, all the users, the conferences and the analysts, everyone is talking around generative AI, right? We are going into a new really era with that. Some of the things that we are seeing from the analysts as well as from what we are discussing with our customers is the key to success comes from if you make data and AI a team sport, right? That you can really pace innovation faster with that. If you can extend your data and AI expertise and readiness strategy to have Gen AI part of it as well, and also if you can invest in the solutions that keeps you ahead of the pack is really important. That really allows you to set the data and AI foundations from the beginning. The good thing is here at Google, we have been really really lucky, right? So we started seeing this innovation from the very beginning. The Hadoop, right, which brought the big data era, is really came from the Google file system paper, right, which was the the basis for the Hadoop environment. Then likes of TensorFlow and AutoML came through the research, and we productionized it, and we also made it available to the others as well. This gives our customers access to state-of-art art AI models, including the ability to train, models on their own as well by using things like TensorFlow. Then, 2017 came in the Transformers, where we published this paper, which you might have heard already. Attention is all you need, which inspired a lot of the Gen AI now you see today as well. And we continue to double down on innovating on AI. But let's take a step back. Let's look at little bit on the ecosystem, right? Data warehouses have been around for a long time, over for decades, 40 years. They have been really successful. They help us to really focus on answering the past questions, and they focus on the more structured users, and they really serve a specific persona, and the SQL users and the data analysts. And as I mentioned with the Hadoop era, the data lakes came. They looked into really answering not just yesterday, but what's happening now as well. It brought in more data sets, unstructured and semi-structured data, as well as we move away from SQL being the only language and only way that we are interacting with data. And we started looking into things like, Spark and others as well, right? But now we are entering into new era with the AI lakehouse. We are really looking to answer past, present, and the future question. It is not sufficient anymore if we look into what has happened in the past. What is happening now is also not sufficient either. What is going to happen tomorrow is what everyone is demanding from us. At the same time, how can we go and leverage the structured data together with unstructured data, and not just really having the folks who knows how to program and use this language, the environment as well, but how can we democratize, if you like, the access as well beyond SQL and programming languages, and using your natural language, effectively moving from the data analysts, and we have seen the rise of the data scientists and data engineer within the data lake era. Right now we are really seeing the rise of the data professional, if you like, right? And everyone is going to become part of the data professional ecosystem. Our data and AI cloud, we have the databases, data analytics, AI, and the insights that is covered from the Looker side of things. I'll focus on the data analytics and a little bit on the AI before I pass over to my colleagues, Mer and MG here, that who are going to take you through the Looker side of things as well, right? So from the data analytics, we have an environment that really gives you multi-engine. You can access to the data that you have, whichever format that you keep it, whichever storage medium that you keep it, and even across clouds as well, right? Through the engine that you wish to use. It gives you the ability, it removes the barriers for you, right, to enter and start using things. The game really becomes, right, where do you feel comfortable as the user to solve the specific business problems that you are asked to do, right? And this is supported with the all the fantastic foundational models that are served through the Vertex AI side of things. As I said, I'm not touching into the Looker because my colleagues are going to cover that, and I'm focusing more on the data analytics from the piece that I'm covering here. Okay, but our the data the AI lakehouse architecture really gives you the foundations for that, right? It gives you the environment whereby you are not just bringing the data in, you are consuming the data, you are bringing data and you are integrating with everything else around it, whilst you are keeping that governed, secured as well, right? And effectively, what you really need to do, particularly this is becoming more and more important with the generative AI side of things, is that bring AI to your data and bring AI and your data to life. Rather than you needing to move your data towards AI, which creates all the challenges around the data governance security, right? Why don't you move your AI close to your data? This is effectively, what will give you the abilities around it as well. We heard feedback from working with customers in number of areas, right? Built-in intelligence which brings the Gen AI to your data, a unified data and AI experience for all the users, as I mentioned, right? And on an open ecosystem and such as the new things that we brought in, and you might have seen at our next event, at the end of August, just over a month ago, really, right? You have seen that we brought new capabilities supported by, ML, right? So the integration with ML platform from the Dataplex to on the data processing layer, whereby the foundational models that you can go and call directly from BigQuery, which, by calling a couple of lines of SQL, right? And what is really, driving is that what we are seeing is borders between personas are getting blurred. When we look at it, who can actually use AI today, right? We have thousands of ML researchers in the world and few million ML engineers and tens of millions of developers. But we have hundreds of millions of analysts who understand the business side, better than most of the others, right? And we are also bringing them together in this ecosystem as well. Effectively, there is AI capabilities for all users, right? Whether you are using a pre-trained generative AI APIs and agents, right? You might be looking into some sentiment within the text. You are just calling an API or you are translating some text. On the other end, you might have ML engineers or data scientists who are building and training models, right? And making it available to others. But predominantly, most of your users will be at the middle of this diagram that I'm showing you, right? It is really a custom AI which you come and tune with likes of AutoML, but also likes of BigQuery ML as well, right? Imagine that you can use, LLMs directly from your SQL data warehouse or, data lake without writing and managing the entire infrastructure, without really worrying about the governance and everything as well. And that's where we'll see, most of the, users focusing on to. It's effectively making data and AI a team sport. And I want to cover, some of the BigQuery updates before we go into the Looker updates as well, right? So BigQuery is at the core of our data and AI cloud. It really helps to power the innovations, right? So it is more than a cloud data warehouse, really. It is foundation needed to approach data and serve users in limitless ways. And over the decade, we have been listening to our customers, right? It was first announced back in 2010. It was focused on a single use case, running SQL queries on a very large data sets. But since the initial launch, BigQuery has evolved through continuous innovation, right? We brought in multi-cloud analytics. We brought in integrated SQL with BigQuery ML, as I mentioned, right? We built in geospatial analysis with the support as well. We brought in real-time streaming data ingestion, not just mini batches of a few seconds or minutes, but milliseconds ingestion directly into your data warehouse, and also business intelligence, query acceleration, and others as well. We are seeing phenomenal amount of continuous innovation with BigQuery, really driven mostly what our customers are asking us. This is based on our BigQuery release notes, which are available publicly on our website. And this diagram, which was taken 2 weeks ago, is lying because one of my colleagues shared another one today. It is over 125 now. See the number of features, see the number of capabilities that we are making available, right? And this architecture is giving us differentiation and huge capabilities, right? It allows us to achieve time to value with a very efficient, reliable environment, also allowing us to scale, and not just the core data analytics workloads, but also the AI workloads as well, because this environment stands on the infrastructure that also powers Google, which serves billions and billions and users and the other places as well, right? But at the same time, the same environment is also used by very small use cases, right? It is the same environment that you are using without you are needing to configure. But let's look into first on what we mean by unified data platform, and I'll come and iterate this point, right? And making data and AI team sport, and because it is very important. Traditionally, the users, and this is one of my favorite diagrams here, that I have come up with actually, that traditionally data analysts and data engineers have been working on the blue boxes, right? So you are bringing some data and you are cleansing it, integrating it, and at the end visualizing it. But now they are also asked to do some of the green boxes, which is traditionally what the ML engineers and the data scientists have been dealing with, right? Now a data engineer comes, they get some unstructured data. For example, that data might have, let's say, the cities that the customers are interacting with, right? The data engineer is then asked, can you bring it all the cities that my unstructured data with my customer interactions have? What do they need to do? Do they need to go and ask an ML team to prepare it for them? Or they can just go and execute a single line of SQL and get access to that by understanding which model that they are going to use. On the flip side, when we look at the ML engineers and data scientists, they're also asked to do some of the core data engineering tasks, right? They need to understand the data quality rules. They need to understand the governance. They need to understand the metadata where it is coming from, rather than going and asking the data engineering team to do for them as well. And one thing that we introduce at Next again, is exactly for that. We announced BigQuery Studio, and our goal with BigQuery Studio is to provide a guided path through the data to AI journey, making it easy to tap into different languages and systems all in the same interface. You can come and write your SQL, your Python, and you can create your notebooks in the same place, while it's also tapping into the power of using things like Pandas interface to prepare, train, and score on the data with very large data sets when it is necessary, as well as doing the core, data governance task likes of data profiling, quality and lineage as well, right? And hence we extended the, Dataplex, and then the data profiling, automatic data quality is there, as well as the data lineage. But as I said, we also bring the data available in different places together in this environment as well. With Big Lake managed tables, you can have fully managed experience on open formats such as Iceberg with support of high throughput streaming, right? Through the same interface, at the same time accessing the data that is managed within the data warehouse itself as well, right? And Omni takes and extend this beyond the Google Cloud environment to other clouds as well. Traditionally, what it allow you to do is it allow you to run queries that to bring some data that resides in other cloud. Now you can do very powerful cross-cloud joins in an automated and an incremental way as well, with things like materialized views. It also enables you to do things like bidirectional data, federation and sharing as well. And then what I said with sharing is that also you can create ecosystems where you can share data with the other teams that are available within your ecosystem. And with Analytics Hub, thousands of organizations use really BigQuery to share petabytes and petabytes of data every week. And let me talk a little bit around the intelligence side of things as well, right? You might have heard Duet AI. Duet AI is the AI powered collaborator within Google Cloud, and it is now available for within the data analytics ecosystem as well. It helps you to generate complete SQL queries and explain SQL queries. So effectively, you can come and do natural language to SQL, and you can also do SQL to language as well to understand what it is doing, right? And while it is doing that, everything stays within the same environment, so the Duet AI doesn't use your prompts or your responses to train its model. You know that you are not copying your IP and your code into somewhere else and where a model that might take it away from you. And also, I mentioned BigQuery ML a number of times. It is available, right, to use with the core models and traditional ML, right? But now what we are doing is we are making it available to use the LLMs directly from BigQuery. In fact, we have a number of customers who are already using this in the in the preview, which is interesting as well, right? So, and some of the things that they are doing is they are looking into sentiment with the customer interaction data, but also they are doing things like generation capabilities as well, right? I know folks who are generating emails directly from their data warehouse just using SQL. Effectively, what is happening is, right, you are bringing the prompt engineering into SQL, right, and you are really getting your creativity helping you to do the prompt engineering where your data resides as well, right? And how you are serving all of this, it is really important. And you might have heard, and this is one of the hot topics as well, right? How you do the vector embeddings and how you can provide an interface for folks who train their environment and have all of these capabilities represented as vector indexes, right? You can see the vector index is a long term memory of LLMs. Now it is being integrated into BigQuery, right? You'll be able to run SQL commands just like you do for geospatial, and you'll be able to deal with vector functions as well directly through your SQL without needing another platform as well. And let's look into the core platform for a minute, and then I'll hand over to my colleagues around it, Looker, right? So we have been focusing a lot. We have been doing lots of performance improvements in BigQuery, right? And it is really interesting. Some of the recent improvements that we have done is adaptive file sizing algorithm for the how we store the data behind the scenes with the BigQuery's internal storage format, that we improve that the small tables are performing much better, right? Also the the new dynamic concurrency and queuing algorithm allows you to handle spikes, so thousands of simultaneous queries for you as well. And our new metadata caching system help with for capacitor, which helps BigQuery to quickly identify the relevant data needed for a query. In fact, we even published a paper around that, and I strongly recommend you reading it if you are interested around that. And we also introduced things like table snapshots and clones, which are the BigQuery features that enables you to make efficient use of your data storage. Table snapshots are really read-only versions of your base tables, and the table clones are the mutable versions of your base tables as well. And these are now generally available, and the clones are available in preview for you. And my last, slide is around BigQuery migration services, right? One of the things that we provided since, summer 2022 is you can, we give you an ability to convert your SQL, right, through whatever language that you have into the language that BigQuery understands. Now, what we are doing this, we are extending this further with LLMs, right? And when there are edge cases that the the SQL, the compiler that we have for translating SQL cannot help, LLM comes in and then it tries to convert that code for you. And apologies, I was a bit fast while I was presenting because there's so much to go through. Pause, and I'll hand over to my colleague Mer to take you to the Looker update as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Firat. Hi, everyone. My name is Mare Newton. I'm here with my teammate, Mary Grace Glascott. We're outbound product managers for the Looker product family, and super excited to be here today to share some of the Looker updates with you, and really, really thankful to you all for joining us. So I'll kick us off with a recap of some of the things that we've really been working on over the last year, some of the things that are really laying the foundation for a lot of the generative AI work that we're doing. And then I'll hand over to Mary Grace to talk through the really exciting Duet AI features that we're bringing to the Looker product family. On the whole, we do see a huge opportunity to leverage AI to really make business intelligence workflows more efficient, more accessible, more useful. And Looker's really well positioned in that area for a number of reasons. The first is that it really does offer a complete BI platform, and it sits within the broader Google ecosystem. And Firat just talked a lot about the innovations that are coming to the ecosystem, some of which we're really going to be able to take advantage of in Looker, particularly with our in-database query architecture and some of the enhancements with BigQuery, BQML, and LLM access there. The second, semantic modeling capabilities are really going to enable us to provide additional context like data definitions, relationships, even individual user information that can help inform the output of an LLM. And then third, Looker's API-first development platform really enables a variety of integrations and custom applications to be developed that incorporate model data from Looker into Gen AI workflows. So this is kind of the broad theme, but like I said, we'll talk through some of the big updates that have been laying the foundation. And I'll start with Looker as your complete business intelligence ecosystem and the things that we've been launching in this space. For us, business intelligence is all about connecting users to insights. And Looker does already provide a full range of capabilities in this area: insights and reports, insights delivered to customers, insights piped into automated processes, and we can do more. Google offers a really vast ecosystem of products and services that we can use to help connect users to insights. So we're really focused on tightening some of the integrations between Looker and the broader Google ecosystem. And some of the things that I'll highlight: launching Looker Google Cloud Core, which is a native version of Looker in the Google Cloud Console. Launching and enhancing connectivity to first-party ad hoc analysis tools, specifically Looker Studio and Connected Sheets, and then building things like scheduling and alerting integrations between Looker Studio and Google Chat. So I'll start with Looker Google Cloud Core. This is Looker rebuilt on Google Cloud infrastructure, and really making it more of a Google native service that feels more like other Google Cloud products. It's a new architecture offering that is on the same control plane as other Google Cloud products and opens up new integration opportunities for the future. It also brings a number of key benefits like enterprise-grade security enhancements, support for VPC service controls, private IP, customer-managed encryption keys. It has some of those Google Cloud integrations already built in, like support for IAM for user authentication, and service agent access to BigQuery. And then it also provides additional control over maintenance, auditing through cloud logs, and Terraform support. So this new architecture is really a key foundational component of some of the Gen AI features and capabilities that we're building that leverage Google's AI models and tools. When it comes to connecting users to insights within a BI ecosystem, this also means taking data to where users are and where they already work. And let's face it, no matter how many dashboards we create or how many features we build into a BI tool, a lot of users still just really want to access their data in a spreadsheet. So we did launch Connected Sheets for Looker earlier this year, which enables users to access all of those LookML-defined metrics and joins in a Looker Explorer through a pivot table in Google Sheets. And we're continuing to build additional enhancements to this integration. So we had support for measure filters and the ability to apply filters based on a source of values from your data. Those rolled out in July. We have support for filter expressions like relative dates, last 30 days. That rolled out last month. And then we're bringing support for filter-only fields and parameters later this year. And then, of course, we also launched Looker's integration with Looker Studio earlier this year. A business intelligence ecosystem, it really has to include support for ad hoc analysis. And while Looker offers fantastic data exploration and drill down capabilities, the in-database query architecture that in many ways is an advantage and allows you to leverage the power of your data warehouse, it is a little bit at odds with some of the core ad hoc analysis feature requests that we get, like the ability to upload a CSV file. So this is really where Looker Studio comes in and shines. It is an ad hoc analysis and visualization tool that can really complement Looker by supporting those types of ad hoc analysis use cases. And with over 800 data connectors that are API-based or local file-based, premium ads connectivity, there's a lot of opportunity to then start blending that kind of ungoverned data with data from a Looker model. And then, of course, the paid version of Looker Studio Pro, launched as well and brings additional enterprise management capabilities, support, workspace integrations, mobile app access, and alerting. So the ecosystem is really important because it provides that foundation for connecting users to insights across those different products, across different use cases. The trusted platform that we're using really is the heart of that BI ecosystem, also enables us to open up connections and integrations outside of Google. And it enables us to pipe trusted data into all sorts of downstream processes and applications using the Looker API. So Looker's secret sauce, of course, is its modeling layer, which is built using LookML. Any Looker users that we have on the call are probably very familiar with LookML. And this really provides the single place for curating and governing metrics and data relationships that are most important to your business. Based on the LookML model, users see consistent results, answers, regardless of where they're actually consuming those outputs. And because we know that a variety of tools are typically used within any given organization, we have opened up and are continuing to expand our partner connectivity ecosystem to make that modeled Looker data available across that variety of visualization tools. So in July, we launched an integration with Power BI, giving users the ability to surface a Looker Explorer and analyze Looker data through Power BI directly. We have a similar integration with Tableau that's currently in preview. I know this is a long-awaited one for some of our customers that utilize Tableau alongside Looker. And then we also recently announced a new partnership with ThoughtSpot. So soon you will be able to start to preview and test out ThoughtSpot's search-based analytics on top of Looker's trusted metrics. And then behind the scenes, to support this open ecosystem and this partner connectivity, we've been developing what we're calling an Open SQL interface. And this is really a generic JDBC driver that will enable other front-end tools and applications that support JDBC connectivity to interact with a Looker model, kind of expanding that ecosystem even further. And then, of course, in addition to opening up Looker's semantic layer for those downstream BI and reporting use cases, Looker's semantic model also offers a foundation through which really raw data can be enriched and contextualized to a user, which can then be leveraged downstream for Gen AI-based applications and workflows as well. And that's a really important area that we're starting to see emerge in some of the things that our customers are doing. So with Looker's development platform, you can take modeled, trusted, context-filled data from Looker, and you can put it just about anywhere, including into Gen AI applications and workflows. So what we're seeing some of our customers and partners and even internal customer engineers starting to build are new solutions and examples based on Looker's development platform and semantic layer, and then tying in Gen AI APIs and an LLM capability. So we're seeing examples of generative AI Studio being used to access Looker data via API and answer questions based on model data sets. Examples of Gen AI applications that are being built inside of Looker directly through Looker's extension framework, which is really cool. And then Looker's Action Hub being used to really send data sets into other tools and applications. And that's been a feature we've had for a while, but we're starting to see a lot of opportunity emerge in terms of automating that process with Gen AI. So I had a couple examples that we already have out there in our open source library. These, I think, have also been shared on the community. So it's a great spot to go to check out some examples and code templates of things that you can start doing today from the BI ecosystem we have, from the semantic layer and the platform that we already provide. So definitely check these out. Again, Looker's open source repository has these. But then in addition to this more custom built workflow capability, we are, of course, building Gen AI capabilities into the Looker product family directly. So I'll hand over to my teammate, Mary Grace, to kind of talk through some of those additional features and capabilities that are coming soon.
Thanks, Mare. Super excited to speak with you all today about how Looker is being infused with intelligence with those native Gen AI capabilities that Mare just referenced. And just going back to something that Firat said earlier in the presentation, he said, lines are really blurring between personas, between kind of those expert developers and those hardcore analysts, and more of those consumer folks that just want access to everyday insights. And that's really where the potential of generative AI is. There's been the stat forever in BI that there's a ceiling at about 25% of the organization. And, adoption beyond that has been really tricky. And I think what we'll see is generative AI really explode that adoption curve, making it a lot easier to get started. And so that's where Duet AI in Looker comes in. So Duet AI is a generative AI service across different capabilities within Looker and within Looker Studio Pro. At Google Cloud Next, we announced 6 particular capabilities where we are infusing generative AI into the Looker experience. The first is in conversational queries. And so this really enables you to have a conversation with your data, ask questions in natural language, and get back charts and tables. So you can think of it almost as like an analyst in your pocket. And it's really about democratizing access to data-driven insights. With conversational queries, it's pretty good at handling even vague requests. So you'll see Duet kind of respond back with a couple of options to clarify, what's the insight that you're really looking for. And so this is something we are super excited about. The next Duet AI capability is specific to automatic slide generation. And so a colleague of ours said it best. He said, at the end of the day, all data flows to slide decks. And I think many of us on this call have spent a good amount of time, I'm sure, doing, building decks for weekly, monthly, quarterly reports. It can be pretty tedious and time consuming. And essentially what this Duet AI capability does is automate that process for you. So if you have a report with a bunch of, graphs and tables on it, you export it to slides. Each individual slide will house one of those charts or tables, and it will also automate a natural language summary describing the key insights, the minimums, the maximums, the trends within those charts and graphs. The next Duet AI capability is around report generation. And so I think for a lot of us, that blank slate can be pretty intimidating when you're starting to build out a report. And so what the report generation Duet AI capability enables us to do is really build upon that conversational query experience we saw earlier. And it's about having your AI analyst create an entire report for you from scratch. So it eliminates that need for a starting point. And you can give the Duet, some instruction on how you would like it formatted. You can, of course, change whatever you see fit, but you don't have to start it from scratch. And that's a huge time saver for a lot of us who do this on a pretty regular basis. The next Duet AI capability that I'll talk about is around Formula Assistant. So if there's any kind of Looker Studio power users on the call, you're probably familiar with calculated fields. And calculated fields can be kind of tricky to build, especially heavy duty formulas like case statements. A lot of us, have to check the reference guide. It's a lot of trial and error to get that case statement right. And so with the Formula Assistant within Duet AI, it automatically creates those formulas for you. Supports case statements, regex, and other types of functions. The next Duet capability that I'll talk about is around the Advanced Visualization Assistant. So within Looker this past year, we released the Advanced Visualization capability in Labs. And essentially, it's a code-based approach to pulling in any type of visualization that you want that's not currently out of the box in Looker. Something our customers were super, super excited about. But again, that's a code-first approach to pulling in a custom visualization. So what about the rest of us that don't want to do a code-first approach to that? That's where enabling an assistant experience on top of that comes in. And so now with this natural language assistant, you can just simply type in how you want to format that chart, how you want to pull in a different type of visualization. So it's really kind of infinite possibilities for charts without code. And then finally, probably the one I'm most excited about is the LookML assistant. And so Mayor talked earlier about the Looker semantic model, that Looker modeling layer being really the secret sauce behind Looker. And essentially what the LookML assistant does for you is accelerating the learning curve of learning LookML, because it automatically does it for you. And so again, with the other assistant experiences, you specify your intent in natural language, type in what you want those that code to be. It will give a couple code suggestions. You can accept it or ignore those, and it automatically churns out LookML. So it could be very valuable for those newer users who aren't as familiar with LookML, or potentially those more challenging, LookML syntax statements that you just want to have an assistant be able to automate those for you. So super excited about those native generative AI experiences that are going to be within Looker Studio Pro and within Looker. And with that, I'll hand it over to Lauren to talk a little bit about some resources that we have in the community, as well as open it up to questions.
Amazing. Thank you all so much for this content, this presentation, and some of the demos that we were able to see as well. And thank you all for joining us and for your questions. We are going to hop into those, but before we do, just a few additional resources that you can see here on this slide, and we'll also drop into the chat. But that first is the Google Cloud community, where you can join in forums, ask questions with your peers and with Googlers, and you can also search for your questions as well, as they may have already been answered. And then secondly is the feedback forum. So this will just take 30 seconds to a minute. We'd love to hear your feedback on this session, or if you have any suggestions for future topics, we'd love to hear from you. And then lastly, you can keep an eye on upcoming events. We've highlighted just a few here, but you can explore all of them at that third link. We're hosting several events a week, so we'd love to hear from you and see you next time. All right, with that, I know we have several questions, so we will use the remaining time to dive into those. First, we had a couple that we saw came in pre-submitted by signing up that we hope will address questions from many of you as well. So first, we'll kick it off there. Focused on Looker. What are the key differences between Looker and Looker Studio? And will there be any further integrations between the two in the future?
Yep, and I'm happy to take this, Lauren. So Mayor talked about the value of Looker Studio a little bit earlier, so I'll just expand on that a little bit. But first with Looker. So Looker is really about providing, that consistent and governed data experience across the organization. So, Looker enables data teams to use LookML to build and manage semantic data representations and make that data accessible in other tools and to power experiences. So the term here is really governed BI. Mir also talked about Looker from a developer platform perspective. So really a lot of that is around embedded BI or around data monetization experiences. So using Looker's API first approach and developer tools to really build those unique data experiences, applications, workflows, things that don't often even feel like a dashboard. Looker Studio, on the other hand, it's really about providing easy analysis, visualization, collaboration. So without any data set up by the data team, without any upfront model building, that ability to connect really easily to those 800 plus connectors, to drag and drop measures, to build reports in minutes. It has that kind of Google style sharing and collaboration, that one-click styling. So the term here is really around ad hoc analysis. So in terms of combining the two, today we have customers who have standardized on Looker for that kind of centralized, consistent metrics across their organization. But they have individuals that really want that ability to pull in their own spreadsheets, pull in their own CSVs, connect to their own data sources, and combine that modeled data from Looker with the unmodeled data from Data Studio. And that's where the integration comes in. It's the same idea as those individuals who prefer maybe that spreadsheet-like interface. They might be doing the connected sheets experience as their interface, but again, pulling model data from Looker on the back end. Or those Power BI and Tableau users who really appreciate those drag and drop experiences, but don't want to be stuck in data chaos, dealing with a ton of data extracts. So again, pulling in from the Looker semantic experience on the back end. So we want to be able to meet those users who really want that control, that freedom, that ad hoc analysis experience. And that's where we have Studio as that complementary option, as Mayor talked about.
Amazing. Thank you for that explanation. Really appreciate it. And just our next couple pre-submitted questions. I think these will be for you, Firat, but what LLMs are available to use with BigQuery? And then as a follow-up to that, how can we ensure users that query results provided by generative AI are accurate, especially over the very large data sets that BigQuery supports?
Right, and thanks for these questions. They're interesting indeed. So BigQuery ML can access to a number of different, models. First, models trained via BigQuery ML itself are available. The models can be imported into BigQuery ML as well. This can be likes of TensorFlow, XGBoost, or even things like, Onyx, which gives you the ability to have, lot of different frameworks to be made available into, BigQuery, right? Models that are deployed as a Vertex AI endpoint, including models that can be trained elsewhere, or the models that you train within Vertex AI itself via either AutoML or custom training can be made available, and also the Vertex AI pre-trained models, right? The AI vision, AI translation, the natural language, as well as the Vertex AI foundational models are available in BigQuery ML, right? So as long as, and at the moment, for example, you can use text Python, model and such, and whatever it's made available through, Vertex AI foundational models, this is all going to be automatically available to you, right? That's first question. And the second question is, and then this is a problem that everyone faces, right? So because the LLMs by design are not 100 percent accurate. It is based on some statistical analysis that the effectively very high level that the model does, right? So, and what we call hallucinations, which is again came as a paper from Google, as is a real thing, right? So it can give you the answers that might not true. So the way to really use this is you need to really choose the right foundational model for the task that you are trying to solve, right? And also you have to evaluate the model that you have with the data sets that you are using to process, and try to put some safeguards around it. It is a common practice, for example, that running the output with another model, right, to verify the output of what you get from it as well, right? And also bear in mind, if you are training your own model, what data that you give into it is effectively what you are going to get out of it. Whether it is generative AI or traditional AI, right? The key is what data that you put into your ML algorithms is effectively what you are going to get out from it. So if you choose the right model, right, you'll be able to get better responses. You need to put the rail guards around the feedback that you are getting from your models. And also, since we are giving you access to the Vertex AI models behind the scenes, right, to access to things like from BigQuery ML, you can control the temperature values and such. It doesn't solve your problem in terms of the accuracy, but it gives you ability in terms of the predictability of the results that you are getting, for example, right? And then it will give you the ability to put more safeguards around it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that explanation. So with that, now we're going to hop over into the questions from the chat. So thank you again for adding these all in. Keep it coming and we'll be sure to get to them. Okay, so our first question that we'll start with is, does BigQuery Omni cover integration with OCI Oracle Autonomous?
So this is, BigQuery Omni provides an interface for you you can go and, query results from the other clouds as well, right? As long as the OCI Oracle, can leverage that, it can work. But I haven't tested the, partner tool to be able to answer that for you.
Makes sense. Okay. For Duet AI in BigQuery to work well, what do we need to provide to Duet AI so that it has the context to correctly generate or explain queries, such as table column descriptions filled out?
Right. So the Duet AI in BigQuery effectively, works with a model that understands the Google SQL very well and BigQuery SQL well, right? So you effectively at this stage you are just writing your stuff, and we are working to include the semantic knowledge through that, which will help you, as you said, to generate and explain queries better, right? Once you fill all that metadata related to that.
Got it. Okay. Is it possible for Vertex AI to directly interact with Looker, such as reading directly from the LookML layer or creating visualizations?
I can take this one. So with Looker's API layer, there is the ability to access data from Looker to access modeled data sets from other tools. And I have seen examples of kind of Gen AI Studio being used to, in some cases, even build out a Looker API call that then brings back a data set or brings back a specific visualization. So with Looker's API and kind of SDK development platform, a lot of these interactions are possible today.
Excellent. Okay. Our next question is also around Looker. So As you were presenting, some of the examples were in Looker Studio. Will there be conversational queries or slide generation in Looker Original?
Good question, Dan. Yes, I showed 6 capabilities. The first 4 are Looker Studio Pro. The last 2 are going to be in Looker Core. This is the first step, right? This is our first entree into generative AI. We're also trying to make it a lot easier for you to build generative AI experiences within Looker directly. So those were some of the capabilities that Mare showed, particularly the actions and the blocks that we have with Vertex AI. And so I can't comment specifically on the Duet AI specific roadmap, but I can say that from a Looker perspective, not Looker Studio or Looker Studio Pro, the idea is to make it easier for you to build generative AI experiences with the tools that we have in Looker and with our integrations with Vertex AI.
Great, thank you. Okay. So normalizing city names is a common use case. I would love to understand how Google's AI offerings provide a solution. From my testing, Gen AI doesn't do a great job at this use case. Any thoughts from the team?
So using the the text bison through available from Vertex AI, right? You'll be able to do some of this, and it gives pretty good results from what we have seen and from what I heard from some of the customers as well. So you are effectively doing a named entity extraction through that, and you are looking into cities, and it does do a good job.
Great. Okay. Our next question that we'll take is there a way to simply request migration of Looker instances to Cloud Core without disruption?
I can take this one. That's a great question. So right now, the best approach would be to talk to your account team about this, but we are working on bringing additional migration capability into the Looker hosted product itself. So come renewal time, you would be able to renew on the new platform and basically do sort of an export import to migrate over to the Looker core instance from a Looker hosted instance. So stay tuned. This is a Q1 timeframe for some of the self-managed migration capabilities, but we are working on that right now.
Makes sense. Okay. Any thoughts of using Malloy modeling within Looker? Translation of LookML to Malloy models.
I love this question. It's not in our near-term roadmap. Malloy, I've seen it. I've played around with it a little bit. Super cool. I think what you can do with Malloy compared to LookML and the vast number of dialects that are supported by LookML today, there's a lot of thought that would need to go into what this would look like. But we do have a PM who is looking at Malloy and kind of exploring what this could look like in the long term. So they are still 2 separate languages, but we also see the potential of Malloy and are interested in continuing to explore what we can do with that.
Great. Okay, we have just a few more questions left with just the couple of minutes that we have. So please, now is the time if you've had any remaining questions. Okay, so our next question is, any plans for GitHub integration for looks and dashboards so you can easily deploy from staged or dev to production when running 2 separate instances?
Yeah, so there aren't plans right now for GitHub integration for user-defined content. And unfortunately, looks are really only user-defined. But we have had a longstanding ability to convert user-defined dashboards to LookML dashboards and actually migrate those over as LookML dashboards alongside other LookML code. So it doesn't solve all of the scenarios that you're noting here around looks and dashboards, but for core content, the ability to shift between LookML and regular dashboards back and forth to support those types of migrations is possible today.
Great. Okay, so we did have one question around Duet AI availability. So I think it might be helpful if we drop a link to the resources page around Duet AI. But as I'm doing that, any thoughts from the team here on this?
So Duet AI is available effectively with Workspace. So as long as you can access to Workspace, you should be able to access Duet AI as well.
Okay, great. And we did just drop a link to additional information there, so you can check that out. Okay, we have time for just one more question. So thank you all so much. If you had any additional, again, please utilize the Google Workspace and Google Cloud community, apologies, and also the Looker forums, so you can ask questions and find answers there as we go along. Okay, so our last question that we'll take is there anything when working with models and views in Looker Studio to refresh itself whenever I do a change within the model, I need to go explore and refresh the table again?
That is a good question. And we have the PM on Studio on chat, so he might be able to respond because I have a couple questions if it's models like pulling from the semantic layer in Looker or model that they've created within Studio. So I'm not quite sure, but I think Andrew, our PM, can help surface that one on chat.
Sounds good. And yes, to that point, thank you so much, Andrew, Roderick, Matt, some of our folks from the team who have been joining in the chat, answering your questions. You can find us all in the community as well for any future questions that you may have. With that said, thank you so much, team, for this presentation. This is recorded, so you can go back and take a second look, a closer look at some of the examples and demos that we provided. Before we close out today, any final thoughts from you and the team?
Nothing from me. Thank you all for joining, and please engage with us on the community. We're happy to keep answering your questions, and looking forward to the next one of these. Lauren will have to do another one with new updates as things roll out. I love the interest, and yeah, I appreciate all of your time and attention and engagement.
Thank you.
Thanks for all the interaction.
Plus one. Thank you all. I hope you have a great rest of your day, evening, or morning, wherever you're joining us from, and we hope to see you next time. All right. Thank you.